Joining us on Hot Copy this morning to share his assessment and reservations regarding the proposed 2021 budget. What's been included? What's been removed? We have Senator Panfilo Lacson this morning. Senator Lacson, good morning and thank you for joining us, sir.
Karen, good morning and thank you for having me.
All right. How would you describe the 2021 budget? If you were to describe looking at it, how would you describe it?
Well, first, the theme is reset, rebound, recover. And the theme is anchored on build, build, build. But when we scrutinize the 2021 National Expenditure Program and compared it with the 2020 General Appropriations Act, we have expressed so many reservations. For one, how can we assign the build effort to primarily to two agencies that in so many years have topped the agencies listed as having massive underspending since 2010. So I asked these questions to the economic managers, and I'm not quite satisfied with their answers.
Okay, and the two agencies you're referring to is DPWH and DOTR for the record?
That is correct. DPWH ranked first among agencies with the biggest underspending, at least in 2019, and DOTR ranked fourth.
Okay. Now, you believe that the theme of the budget doesn't really reflect the spirit of the intention of the budget. So let's start first with a report from Bianca Dava. The DSWD budget is at 171.2 billion. Social amelioration is no longer included in the budget, but the government told you that the total appropriation for 4Ps next year actually amounts to 113 billion. Would this be enough, Senator Ping?
I don't think it is enough. And I think they're following a strategy of three stages: emergency, strategy, recovery strategy, and the what they call resiliency in 2021. Emergency started in March and ended in May. Recovery is where we are right now, from June to December.
Yeah.
Resiliency is for the 2021 budget. That's why I asked NEDA Secretary Cal Chua yesterday during our budget deliberation. Ang analogy kasi is nagpapalakas na lamang vitamin at home for the resiliency phase or stage. Now, they themselves admitted that we cannot have the vaccine until third quarter of next year, which is October. So how can we assume, because even in military tactics, a lot of the success of a mission has to do with assumptions. If we assume wrongly, then it could cause loss of lives. And the same principle applies with our economy and the health condition of our country.
So how much do you think, Senator Ping, should be appropriated to DSWD to include additional cash aid or support for the poorest of the poor? If you were to get it in other agencies, how much would be the appropriate amount?
Well, that's another issue altogether, Karen, because they're striking a balance between the health issue and the economic sector. But again, we discovered that even in the distribution of the SAP, the Social Amelioration Program, the 389 billion allotted by DBM to the different agencies, they only spent 359 billion. And I was I was inquiring where the 30 billion spending gap has occurred. Which agencies have sacrificed which sector, which sectoral beneficiaries. Kasi 30 billion is 30 billion. And since we were at the stage when we were addressing the health issue, which is the pandemic, bakit nagkulang pa ng paggasta yung ating mga agencies? And Secretary Abisado started, blurting out figures as they distributed the amounts to the different agencies.
Yeah.
But that's not what I wanted. Ang gusto ko malaman, nasaan yung 30 billion? Since 389 billion had already been allotted to the agencies, meaning released to the agencies. And why these agencies failed to disburse the aggregate total of 30 billion? Kasi marami pang nagrereklamo ng mga LGUs, mga barangays, who talk to them, na hindi umabot sa kanila yung social amelioration program. If at all, ay kung umabot man, kulang 50%, 40%, 60%. So kung meron pang naiwanang 30 billion under the Bayanihan Act to Heal as Act 1, bakit hindi nila dinisburse? I was referring to the agencies. Of course, Secretary Abisado does not have the wherewithal, the means to find out. But, if I ask the agencies, ibabalik na naman kami sa BBM.
So, just very quickly on that note, if the 30 billion turns out to be savings, what can they do with that? If it was...
I do not know.
Okay.
Because if 389 billion has already been released, bakit may spending gap na 30 billion? Considering na kailangan ng mga kababayan natin, especially yung mga dapat intended beneficiaries on health matters. And of course, kasama rin yung economic issues because ito yung pantawid nila. Dahil nga because of the lockdowns.
All right. Now, let's go to the spirit of the budget. The DPWH, which you flagged, has 667 billion in budget. Nahuli po ninyo ang 469 billion worth of infrastructure projects. A lot have been reappropriated. No detailed itemized spending on it. And then on another note, you have the Department of Agriculture, or the DAR, wherein the budget was cut by 75%, and the administration says it wants to focus on plant. So you have two agencies wherein the budget doesn't match what the government says is the new priority. What is the plan there?
First, I'd like to correct that. It's not 667 billion. Yung budget ng DPWH for infra, 786 billion.
I see.
And of the 786 billion, we found out that 469 billion total, ito yung reappropriations na tinatawag. Meaning, the items are already reflected under the 2020 General Appropriations Act. And then we found out nandun na naman sa 2021 National Expenditure Program. So I raised the question, I raised a red flag on this. And Secretary Abisado was candid enough to admit that there's indeed an error. And he will correct it by asking DPWH to submit to him so he can submit to Congress yung errata.
All right.
469 billion is too large an amount. That's more than 50% of the budget of DPWH for infrastructure. And by inside information, my source from DBM told us that ang reason for the hasty submission of erratic or erroneous appropriations for the 2021 NEP, kasi late nag-submit yung DPWH. For what reason, I do not know. We can only suspect that there was a lot of haggling that went on between DPWH and some legislators. Kaya nagkahuli-huli.
So your source told you that the problem was haggling?
Yeah, that's what we were told. Of course, there's no way of validating it. But why in the world? Kasi big yung doon naka-anchor yung RRR, Reset, Recovery, and whatever, nakalimutan ko na. But build. Bakit yung DPWH would be late in the submission of their proposed budget?
Okay. Now, Senator Ping, since we are talking about a lot of money, If it's been proven, for example, that the DPWH cannot justify this 469 billion, the budget's already set at roughly 4.5 trillion. Is it possible then, will you be suggesting that that 460 plus billion be reassigned to other agencies that need it? Because number one, you've pointed, for example, DOST has been cut 76 million, and you've said, why are we cutting on research and development? Good point on your part. The Department of Agriculture has been cut. You also have other agencies. The DOT has a smaller budget this year. So would you advocate that that 400 plus billion be reassigned to other agencies?
Not the whole amount, but at least a portion of that amount should be realigned or reassigned to other agencies that would be needing more appropriations. Like the DOST, I pointed it out.
Yeah.
We are a nation of shoppers, di ba? PPEs lang, i-import pa tayo. Face mask lang, i-import pa tayo. Face shields, i-import. And, you know, we have a lot of homegrown talents. We have a lot of good scientists. In fact, they are migrating to other countries, in the world. And for all we know, the items that we are purchasing or importing, gawa ng mga Pilipino rin abroad. So why don't we just harness their talent, support them, vigorously support them by way of the national budget, so we can have our own inventions, our own creations, no? Sayang.
Okay, the allocation for the Department of Labor and Employment is 15.9 billion, and people have asked, would this be enough? Considering you have so many businesses, small businesses that have closed down, reports coming into the DOLE in terms of businesses reporting laying off workers, 15.9 billion for DOLE, for the reset. I mean, tama kayo, itong tatlong R, sapat po ba ang 15.9 billion sa DOLE?
No, that's being addressed. Yung MSMEs, yung micro, small, medium enterprises, mahigit 1 million ito, Karen. And out of the 1 million, more than 1 million MSMEs, yung mahigit 4,000 dito, ito yung large corporations. They can take care of themselves. Yeah. But the micro, small, and medium, ito yung tinamaan. And that's being addressed by the economic managers, particularly the DOF. Kaya nga under deliberation now, yung create, to assist these small enterprises. That's being addressed by another effort by the national government. Yung DOLE naman, labor issues yung sa kanila.
Okay.
But of course, kawing-kawing yan eh. Pagka tinamaan yung enterprises, may tama rin yung mga laborers because they are the employees. Okay.
Now, let's go first to the agriculture budget. The agriculture budget is lower than the 2020 budget. The budget was 79.9 billion last year. It's now down. Apparently, the proposed budget of DA was 284. It's now at 66 billion. At least that's what I've researched. You can correct me, Senator. Ang tanong is, the government says that plant is a priority. Agri was the only bright spot in the second quarter. I mean, are we putting our money where our mouth is? Why is the budget for agri this small?
Karen, I think the plant program has no connection with the Department of Agriculture per se, because pag sinabing plant, if you notice during the lockdowns, lahat halos ng kababayan natin nagtanim sa mga paso, nagtanim sa kanilang mga backyards, even condominium units, yung owners, nagtanim sila doon sa kanilang mga pasamano. So it's not really what it is intended. I think it's a misnomer. Pag sinabing plant, it's not the Department of Agriculture. It's addressed to the citizens of this country instead of just staying at home, watching Netflix or watching whatever.
Although it was part of Bayanihan too. Am I correct? Plant. There was funding that was part of Bayanihan too.
Oh yeah, just to encourage Filipinos to plant in their own backyards, probably. Yeah.
All right. So in agri, you have Senator Kiko Pangilinan saying he wants the budget for agri to be increased. Are you on the same page with that?
Yeah, of course. Kasi I have already pointed out, yung 469 billion pesos, ibibigay mo uli kung i-release o i-revise yung list, and they will still retain the 469 billion for DPWH. I cannot see how they can implement or spend everything, considering that since 2010, nandyan sila lagi sa top 10 ng mga underspenders.
Yeah.
Of course, yung big ticket, wag natin pabayaan because yun ang essence ng build. But, preventive maintenance of secondary roads, farm to market roads, and the like should be, delisted, should not be considered anymore because ito yung source ng corruption like dredging, flood control. Alam naman natin, Karen, pagka dredging, isang ulan lang yan, hindi na ma-audit ng COA yan because sasabihin na lang ng contractor, umulan gumuho ulit. So silted na naman yung ilog. So much has been wasted to corruption insofar as the General Appropriations Act is concerned. And
okay, yeah.
we see this every day. So ito yung nakakapagod and nakakainis na every time we deliberate, we point out over and over again the same issues, the same matters.
Okay, the controversial 19 billion pesos for the anti-insurgency program under the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict. Do we really need 19 billion pesos for this?
Well, these are distributed naman sa mga implementing agencies. Merong task force, but they only serve as secretariat. Ang most of it will be implemented by the DILG and they're being downloaded to the local government units. Ito yung pang-hold kasi consolidate and hold yan Once a barangay is cleared, then the local government units through the DILG would be needing funds to consolidate and develop their areas. So the insurgents, the CPP and PAs will not go back to the mountains anymore. So I'm supportive of that program of the government.
And I'm curious,
Kasi we've
where
been in
should
this
they
for
spend?
50 years na, Karen?
Yeah,
Or-
where
or
should
what,
they
60
spend the
years?
19 billion? I mean, just for me to understand.
Development.
Is
Ito yung mga assistance sa mga rebel returnees, tapos pan-develop sa mga lugar. Hindi naman ito pang-gyera because DND and the DILG, the PNP for that matter, have their own budget for to address the insurgency problem. Itong 19 billion, ito yung sa development phase. Pagka na-clear na yung mga barangays, that's where it will come in.
Okay, so Senator Drilon's fears that the funds might be used for partisan politics in the run-up to the 2022 elections, you don't have those fears, Senator Ping?
19 billion? Masyado maliit yun, Karen. Ang nakakatakot dito, yung sa infrastructure projects. Kasi dito papasok yung possible haggling with Malacanang. If we assume that merong sinister effort, sinister move on the part of Malacanang to dip their or poke their fingers do sa 2022 elections. But next year is not yet election year. Of course, tama si Senator Drilon, run up. Ito yung preparatory stage sa May 2022 elections. But I hope not because our country is facing too many problems. First, yung sa pandemic, hindi pa tayo nakakaahon. And we also collated some data, consolidated them to compare our country's response with other countries, our ASEAN neighbors. And in some aspects, medyo nandyan tayo sa middle of the pack. But in cost effectiveness-wise, parang we're lagging behind, Kasi tayo yung pinakamaraming cases next to Singapore on a per capita yung to population ratio, Marami kaming analysis na ginawa but I had no time anymore yesterday. So I would be addressing that in plenary debates.
Okay. All right. Now, of course, cuts across the board are important to focus on what's truly important in 2021. And I wanted to ask you, is the intelligence fund of the president already being discussed? What's interesting is out of my research, under the present administration, the Office of the President's allocation is 400% more than the previous administration's confidential and intelligence funds. In the last 3 years, this administration has maintained the same allocation of 2.5 billion pesos. There was even, I think, 2020, they had asked for 4.5. Did you
4.5 billion.
So the administration got 4.5 in 2020. In 2021, is the Office of the President still getting 4.5 billion?
I think a little lower, no, but still a bit too much because, you know, it started with, I think, 700 plus million pesos.
Yes.
I cannot recall anymore under which administration.
500,
Pero,
sir. 500 was the start. Pinoy administration.
500, and then it evolved into something bigger, 726. That's what I saw in our figures, in our records. And then it ballooned to something like 2 billion, 2.5, and now it's more than 4 billion pesos just for the Office of the President. And you know, Karen, the President has control over other intelligence funds of the entire bureaucracy, meaning yung Executive Department. The ND has their own intelligence fund, the PNP, NSA, Bureau of Customs, BIR, and so forth and so on. Kontrolado pa rin ng Presidente yan. Kung gusto niyang i-control yung release, he can control. But, you know, maybe it's time to really ask, because these are cleared. Yung liquidation nito, wala nang problema because intelligence fund nga eh. So we want to find out, and I myself intend to ask this question when the Office of the President's budget is up for discussion. No, so, you know, pag sinabi mong 4.5 billion a year under one agency, which is the Office of the President, which is not a big office, ano? So how do they spend that? Yun ang tanong.
Okay. Now, the harder question is you might...
Karen,
go ahead.
Meron pang, if I may add, meron pang pang presidente. Yung share niya sa PAGCOR saka si PCSO. And that also runs to billions of pesos a year.
So the harder issue now is you might be the only one advocating that the President's fund be slashed. Because it's during the time of the pandemic, wherein we are in post-recovery mode, and you have agencies fighting, right, for funds, and clearly,
scrambling for funds.
Yes, and this might be difficult considering not many lawmakers may have the courage to actually ask that the Office of the President's funds be slashed back.
Let's see. But, you know, I always say what I mean, you know, and I mean what I say. Even in any budget deliberations, I really ask questions, you know. I want things to be clarified, especially because this is our money, this is our budget. And, you know, yung national debt natin, nasa na tayo? 9.16 trillion pesos. I remember January, early January, before the pandemic, nandiyan lang tayo sa 7.8, 7.9. And now, mahigit or almost 2 trillion yung nadagdag. And sa projection ng national government, abot pa tayo ng baka 12 trillion pesos in national debt. Of course, yung ang ratio nito is, I think, sa ngayon, 85 to 15. 85%, ito yung domestic borrowing, 15% yung foreign borrowing. Pero where will this bring us, the next generation of Filipinos, a nation of, you know, baon sa utang?
Okay, so clearly you will bring up...
you know, I don't mind, I don't question borrowing. Pero dapat, kaya tayo hiram, mag-i-invest tayo for the future. But if we keep on borrowing and we are not investing, palubog tayo niyan. Of course, this is extraordinary times dahil mayroong pandemic that we have to address. But, you know, year in and year out, and I've been questioning this, now we borrow more than what the budget needs, meaning yung borrowing natin vis-a-vis deficit, masyadong malaki yung discrepancy. For example, in the previous year or previous years, ang projected deficit natin nasa mga 600 billion, for example. And ang inihiram natin 1.2 trillion. So I asked the National Treasurer the question, why are we borrowing, say for a family, no? For an analogy. Yung pamilya na kumikita ng 2,000 a month, for example, at merong gastusin na 3,000, bakit uutang ka ng 6,000? Di ba dapat uutangin mo lang 1,000 or a little over 1,000 para may pang-invest ka, para maging self-sustaining ka na. But here we are, every year, every budget year, we notice this, that we borrow, more than double ng ating projected deficit. And the answer was, this is classified, we cannot give you the details. Well, I do not know.
Yeah. You make a strong point, and these are extraordinary times. So you will be asking these hard questions on cuts. And continuing from the Office of the President, the intelligence funds that's ballooned to 4.5 billion. I'm curious, Senator, across the board, what about travel privileges? I don't know any other privileges pa in government that you feel have all agencies taken a cut on certain things like travel, for example? Ano pa ba po ang mga dating pribilehiyo na sa palagay po ninyo?
Karen,
Oo.
We should cut on travels because wala na nakakabiyahe ngayon. Pagka hindi mo binago, hindi mo kinat yung travel expenses ng government officials, saan sila pumupunta? May lockdown nga tayo and nobody travels abroad. Kasi quarantine pa lang, if you go to Hong Kong, for example, di ba 14-day period lang yung visa? 14 days naka-quarantine ka, ba't ka pupunta ng Hong Kong?
Okay. Now, before we end with the budget, the budget's quite interesting. The House Committee suspended the hearings on the PCOO budget. And Congressman Zarate said that it's insulting that PCOO Lorraine Badoy actually red tagged them and said that they were high members of the Communist Party, and they are asking Badoy to resign before they even tackle the PCOO budget. And I want to ask your opinion on this because Yusek Badoy refuses to resign. Martin Andanar said that's her personal opinion, but she remains to be a PCOO official. So the budget of the PCOO is not being discussed. It's been suspended. Should she resign, and is that the right thing to do to hold the budget of the PCOO hostage?
Well, resignation is always a personal decision. It is up to the person being asked to resign. If he or she doesn't want to resign, that's his personal decision. Now, it's up to Congress if they're in support of the move of the Makabayan Bloc in the House or not. If the whole Congress will throw its support to Congressman Zarate and the rest of the Makabayan Bloc, then baka mayroong papuntahan. But if not, hanggang dyan lang yan. And we cannot sacrifice the whole budget for the retention or resignation of a government official assigned to PCOO. Hindi naman pwede ma-hostage yung buong budget eh.
Okay. Now, because interesting, even PNP Chief Cascolan, just attached to red tagging, said that they will also remove PNP posts in the past that have anything to do with what would seem as red tagging, in line with budget deliberations on that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree because even in the passage of the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020, hindi pwedeng pag tinag mo na terrorist na yon. No, we should always be guided by evidence. Sabi nga ni Secretary Guevara, di ba? Maski ano pa yung clamor, ano pa yung perception ng public against an official of the government that is undergoing investigation, at the end of the day, we will always be guided or ruled by evidence. We cannot go beyond what is at hand, yung evidence na hawak ng nag-i-investigate. So let's leave it at that. These are opinions of people that normally clash with each other. So,
Okay. Two more questions for you on the budget. Will you support the judiciary's call to bring back close to 7 billion pesos that was slashed from their proposed budget for 2021? So the figures I have is they proposed a 55.8 billion, but then it was cut by DBM to 43, and then they outlined several areas where they need to put the 6.5 billion. And Maidas Marquez says, as it is, you know, they're already, the justice system is problematic as it is, he says, in terms of budget support. Where do you stand on that?
in fairness to the judiciary, alam mo ba ang share ng judicial branch sa national budget? It used to be less than 1%. No, I think it has now grown to almost 2% or a little over 2%. I have not yet seen the budget proposal for the judiciary. Let me take a look on that. And when we tackle the budget of the judiciary in the committee or even in the plenary, I will make my own study and my own recommendation or proposal for amendments.
Okay. Now, DepEd still has the lion's share, Senator Ping. What is the latest number? Because since you updated the DPWH, what is the latest number of DepEd now? What do you have there?
Constitutional requirement yan na talagang dapat sa Constitution. Number one, I don't have the figure or figures right now. But yes, DepEd always gets the highest share of the national budget. Okay,
because the figure I had was 754, but clearly it has to be wrong because DPWH, you said, is at 786. Another issue is, the last one is the Department of Defense, the DND. The budget I have here is 209 billion, and Secretary Lorenzana says it is not enough. The defense says they're asking for an additional a couple of billions for night fighting equipment, cyber battalion, etc. So amounting maybe to 10-15 billion more. Is it the right time to put more money in the Defense Department? I'm curious where you stand on that.
Ang problema sa DND, we passed the two laws to modernize them, ano? Yung first in 2002, and then we passed a revised AFP modernization program. Even that, hindi naman din nila magamit, no? And they're faced with so many procurement problems, ano? Yung mga technicalities and all. So even during the confirmation hearing of General Gapay, I asked him that, and he said they'll need to complete all their requirements, ano? Kailangan nila mga more or less mga 300 billion pesos more. But when I asked him, meron pa kayong hindi nagagamit dito sa budget niyo for modernization? And he answered back na yun nga yung problema sa procurement. So how do you synchronize yung needs doon sa absorptive capacity? Ito yung lagi natin problema, Karen. Ano? Since time immemorial, since we started participating in the budget deliberations, every year, year in, year out, ang lalaki ng unused. So ang tanong ko lagi sa mga economic managers, why pass or propose a budget that you cannot even consume, you cannot even obligate, you cannot even use? So bakit gano'n? Di ba dapat realistic lang tayo? Ang lalaki, 200 billion, 400 billion, and even the projection for the 2021 budget, ang projection nila na hindi magagamit, nasa 176 billion na. So if that is the projection, bakit hindi mo pa alisin yun? Excise mo lang yun sa National Expenditure Program. Anyway, pinoproject mo na nga na hindi magagamit. And ang projection nila is always short of the actual. No? When we analyze the budget every year, laging yung projection is smaller than the actual. In all areas, ano? Yung projected deficit, mas maliit lagi yung kanilang projection doon sa actual na deficit. Tapos yung sa unobligated or unutilized, ganun din. So bakit hindi sila mag-adjust sa reality? Laging pasobra eh.
Okay. Now, the last question on the budget is the Department of Health. What I have here with me is 203.1 billion. Considering
that is correct.
All right, since we're recovering from a pandemic, vaccine coming out maybe last quarter of next year. Is 200 billion, I mean, I know you've had issues with DOH and PhilHealth, but is 200 billion for health enough?
Set aside the anomalies in PhilHealth, set aside all the corruption issues. Under the Universal Healthcare Act, ang tatlong there's three stages, yung low cost, medium cost, and high cost. Yung low cost, 141 billion yung kailangan.
Okay.
Okay, meaning status quo, walang gagalaw. Ngayon, pagka sinama mo inflation and everything, dapat madagdagan ng 10 billion pesos.
Okay.
Now, under the medium cost, kasi 2 years na tayong, since the passage of the Universal Healthcare Act, hindi tayo umalis sa low cost, 141 billion. In fact, last year, we even introduced amendments. Kami mga senador, nagdagdag kami ng 7 billion sa PhilHealth.
Yeah.
Kasi 67 billion na nandun, nadagdagan naging 70 plus. Anyway, dapat nandun na tayo sa medium cost, meaning 241 billion yung threshold.
Pero of UHC pa lang to, UHC pa lang.
UHC pa lang, yeah. Kung 203 billion yung pinopropose nilang budget, hindi pa na-approximate yung 241 billion na kailangan for the medium cost.
Yeah.
Ang medium cost is select priority areas yung i-address, yung mako-cover. Meaning, ito yung mga 4 to 6 plus barangays or municipalities. Pag graduate natin doon sa high cost at 257 billion, ito na yung all barangays will be covered.
Yeah.
So bakit hindi tayo umaalis doon sa low cost? Universal healthcare, kaya nga natin ipinasa ito para ma-address yung mga health needs na mga para ma-expand yung coverage. And in the end, all Filipinos will be covered, all barangays will be covered. So I think we should also introduce an amendment here to augment the budget of the DOH para sa universal healthcare from 203 para paabutin natin ang medium cost. Kasi ba't hindi na tayo umalis sa low cost?
So technically yung 203
in spite of all the anomalies, Karen, we're still hoping na under the new leadership, at least sa PhilHealth, ma-address itong mga anomalies. But we're caught between, i-address ba natin yung health requirements ng mga Pilipino o bibigyan natin ng additional budget to pocket itong mga shenanigans sa napakahirap. Alam mo, Karen, when we deliberate on the budget, I myself, I'm having sleepless nights because ito yung nagpapagod tayo, nagpupuya tayo kaaral. I discuss with my staff and I'm fortunate to have a very efficient staff. Pagdating sa deliberation, not only in the budget, but even doon sa PhilHealth anomalies, marami kaming contribution doon based on information that we gather because I think I'm a natural magnet for those who want to report anomalies. And we are getting information and documents to share with the Senate.
Yes, but clearly, I mean, globally speaking, I understand you. It's like being caught in between a rock and a hard place. But globally, the world is fighting a health crisis. I understand that. So if we are going to fight a health crisis for recovery to save lives, at 200 billion, may punto kayo, that's the low end. What number are you seeing that is the middle ground that would best serve 2021 for health na makukuha niyo po from other agencies? Is it 250 billion, Senator Ping?
Well, at least 241 billion.
Okay.
Para maka-graduate na tayo doon papunta sa medium cost ng universal healthcare, yung requirements. So, kung 241, kulang ito ng more or less mga 30 or 37 billion.
At palagay nyo, makukuha nyo naman yan sa iba't ibang ahensya?
Well, I think so because yung
DPWH
469, diyan kami laging kumukuha because when we noticed na useless yung project and masyadong susceptible sa corruption, we always find a way to reduce or even delete the whole amount. And more often than not, nakukuha naman namin at naililipat namin doon sa mas nangangailangan.
Okay.
For example, I'm going to look for a source to augment or to return the 76 million pesos that was taken out of the OST, yung kanilang science and technology. Because to me, that's very important eh. Kasi kailan pa tayo titigil ng, sayang yung, dapat ang concentration natin, R&D. When I was chief PNP, meron din kaming research and development na unit. No, alam mo trabaho nila? Mag-Google, mag-shop, magtanong. Sabi ko, it only takes a grade 5 pupil to Google and find out which item to buy. We don't need big... Anyway.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, Senator Lacson. When we return, we're going to talk about PhilHealth and other issues as well. We'll move on from the 2021 budget. At least we've heard in a wide scale what you'd like to move around in the budget. Welcome back to Head Start. Still with us, Senator Panfilo Lacson. Senator, I interviewed Justice Secretary Minardo Guevara last Wednesday, and I actually asked him about your challenge on how he would deal with the task force report, given that the president outright defends Secretary Duque in front of him. So Guevara said he will go by the evidence and he has to do his job, but he did say in effect that there needs to be evidence. Do you believe there's enough evidence to actually pin Duque on corruption? Because Guevara said, Karen, remember, the president's issue is about corruption. Duque kept saying, I was never there when the IRM was released. What are you expecting from the task force report?
Well, the task force, the investigation being conducted by the task force that they're winding up, as we speak, should go as far back as before the Committee of the Whole conducted our investigation into the IRM, IT, and other issues. Remember, Karen, not too long ago, I raised the issue of conflict of interest involving Secretary Duque. No, nilist nila yung kanilang EMDC building sa PhilHealth while he was Secretary of Health. And then yung Doctors Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, a family-owned pharmaceutical company, nagsusupply ng gamot sa DOH. And then we found out na nabubulok o kaya nag-expire yung mga gamot sa bodega ng DOH, hindi na didistribute sa mga barangays. So kung doon lang pagbabasihan, never mind muna yung Committee of the Whole. Kung doon magbabasihan at masasaklaw ng investigation ng Department of Justice-led task force yung culpability ni Secretary Duque, I think at the very least, that's good reason enough for him to step down and not always depend on the President to defend him. To step down. But Senator Ping, Guevara said they used the Senate committee report as the basis, the testimonies there. The conflict of interest issue was not covered in the Committee of the Whole report. No, I don't think so. Yes, that is correct. But I think the DOJ-led investigation should cover other periods, not just the period covered by the Committee of the Whole report. That's just part of their investigation, and we submitted to him. I personally emailed to him the documents, documentary evidence, and testimonial evidence that we gathered during the 3 hearings that we conducted, and it's all with him now, for his appreciation. Now, as far as Secretary Duque, this is my personal opinion. Of course, I voted in favor of the Committee of the Whole report, as reported out by Senate President Soto, na Duque or Secretary Duque should be included doon sa mga kakasuhan. Ang napaka-particular na kaso doon, ito yung talagang, ang sabi nga nung kausap kong abogado, easiest to prosecute, most difficult to defend. Yung Article 217 of Act 3815, also known as the Revised Penal Code. Kasi iyon, i-prove mo lang yung abandonment and negligence. Hindi kailangang ipakitang deliberate intent, hindi kailangang ipakitang nakinabang. Basta abandonment or negligence, pasok ka na ron, swak ka na doon. And being the chair, ex officio chair of the PhilHealth, being Secretary of Health, no, I'm just in between having him indicted or not, because if we will include him in the indictment or in the list of those who should be made answerable, dapat yung iba ring members ng board. But probably he is correct, probably he is not. That wala naman siyang pinirmahan. But ang opinion naman ni Senate President Soto, dahil siya yung chairman, imposibleng hindi niya alam yung nangyayari sa PhilHealth. Because it's very obvious. Fourfold nga yung sabi mo nga, quadruple whammy, not just double whammy yung offense doon sa IRM.
Okay.
First, yeah.
No, go ahead. Just finish your thought.
Yeah. Ang date of effectivity noon, June 11. So as of June 10, nakapag-release na sila ng 14 billion. No, 14 billion ang na-release. So all the releases, and we counted all the releases, nasa mga 631 disbursements. So that's 631 counts of violation of Article 217. Kasi illegal yung disbursement. Malversation yan eh. This is not technical malversation, because I heard from some congressmen that they're thinking of filing technical malversation. No, this is plain and simple malversation of public funds. No, and more than the threshold amount of 8.8 million pesos. Ito yung law, yung amendment ng revised penal code passed by the Senate, by the Congress. Ito yung sponsor ni Senator Drilon. Pag lumampas ka ng 8.8 million, ang penalty rito is reclusion perpetua, meaning unbailable ito. And nagbilang kami nito 300 plus yung nabilang namin dito na more than 8.8. So, there you go. It's up to the Secretary of Justice or the DOJ to appreciate the evidence.
Yes. So you believe, just quickly, that based on the IRM argument, there's enough evidence to already indict him, even just for negligence and abandonment of posts. So moving forward, because I just have 2 minutes left.
I didn't say I'm sure of that. No,
but you said
I'm
there's
not sure.
enough.
Actually, I'm not sure.
Yeah. A lawyer told you there's
evidence-wise,
enough evidence.
At least to indict those who directly participated or who were directly involved in the disbursement.
Okay.
Like Lim Xiaoco, General Morales, and the other members of the executive committee. But as far as the board, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, Karen. It depends on the appreciation of evidence.
All right. My last question, I have 2 minutes left, is Cezar Mancao. I mean, you have a history with Cezar Mancao, and I want to tie it. Now, this is interesting, just to close. Malacanang says that we are confident of his professional credentials, that it would contribute in cybercrime prevention in the country. Cezar Mancau's been appointed as Executive Director of the Cybercrime Investigation Coordination Center of the DICT. Very quickly, what do you make of that appointment?
2 words, presidential prerogative. The president can appoint an angel, the president can appoint a devil, the president can appoint even Lucifer to any government post, basta presidential appointee. So that's all that I can say, Karen.
Okay.
It's presidential prerogative.
Now, tied to that is you actually want heavier penalties for false testimonies. And what you said in an interview, I think with one of the papers, is after you learned your lessons from the witnesses like Ador Mawanay and Cezar Mancao that had given false testimonies, and you said you were victim to that, so you now want heavier penalties for witnesses who give false testimonies, and he's one of them. You cited him as one of them.
We already passed the bill, the Senate version on that issue. I lost in the voting because what I was proposing was to make the offense of lying, committing perjury, equivalent to the penalty being imposed on the person being accused falsely. So kung falsely accused ka for committing murder, dapat ang penalty nung nag-accuse sa'yo falsely, dapat life imprisonment din. But I lost in the voting. Anyway, naiakyat na rin yung penalties yung sa mga offenses. Graduated ito.
Bao.
But I was insisting sana na gawin natin commensurate. But, I was outvoted by my colleagues. Sabi nila, baka harsh and cruel punishment. And that is so provided in the Constitution. So, we are a deliberative body, collegial body, and I lost in the voting.
All right. On that note, Senator Ping Lacson,
Kasi they have not experienced what I experienced, siguro. Kaya we're coming from different perspectives.
On that note, Senator Ping Lacson, I want to thank you so much for your time this morning with Head Start and for going through the 2021 budget with us this morning. I really appreciate it. Take care, sir, and stay strong and stay safe.
Same to you, and regards to DJ.
All right. Thank you so much. Senator Panfilo Lacson this morning on Head Start.